Hi there, and welcome to another Papetti Math YouTube video tutorial where I'm going to be teaching you, yes you, Algebra 1. And in this video, we're going to look at scientific notation. And what it says is scientific notation is a way of writing numbers that are too large or too small to be written in decimal form. A number is written in scientific notation if it's in the form a times 10 to the n, where a is the number in the interval from 1 to 10, but not including 10, and n is any integer. Well, let's take a look at that. A has to be any number. It could be 1, but it can't be 10. So it could go up to 9.9999, but it cannot be 10. And the exponent over here has to be an integer, which means not a decimal or a fraction. So knowing that, let's take a look at exercise number 9, where it says, consider the fact that light travels 6.78 times 10 to the 8th miles in 1 hour. So let's take a little pause right there, because first off, we have this number right here, which is in scientific notation because the a value, the number as the coefficient, is a number between 1 and 10. 6.78 is a number definitely between 1 and 10. And the value of our exponent is going to be an integer that's 8. So now, using that information, we want to know how far will a ray of light travel in 1 year. Set up the conversion below, including units. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this conversion up by writing first what we know. We know that 6.78 times 10 to the 8th miles is how far light travels in 1 hour. And we want to write all the way over here what we want to know. We want to know how many miles it will travel in 1 year. So we have to get to this point over here by manipulating this part over here. So first off, let's look. We have miles in the numerator, and in our answer, we want miles in the numerator. So miles are exactly where we want them to be. Hours are in the denominator, but years are in the denominator over here. So what we're going to have to convert in this problem is hours to years. So what do you know about hours in order to get to a bigger unit of time? Well, the first unit of time that I think of is days. So I know that there are 24 hours in 1 day. And I write it where 24 hours is in the numerator because now I have created a situation where hours are in the numerator and also the denominator. So the hours units could cancel out. And now I'm left with miles per day. But again, I want to get to miles per year. So I'm not quite there yet. I ask myself, do I know days and anything about days and years? And yes, I know how many days are in a typical year. There are 365 days in 1 year. And again, I write it here because now I have days in the numerator and days in the denominator, so days will cancel out. And I'll be left with only miles in the numerator, which is what I have in my answer, and only years in the denominator, which is what I have in my answer. So by multiplying these numbers across, I'll get my solution that I'm looking for. And it says in part B to use your calculator and input that following conversion. So I have 6.78 times 10 to the 8th here. That comes from right there. I've got 24 here, and that comes from right there. And I've got 365 as a final part of the product, and that goes right there. So the reason why these are not written as fractions, like up above here, is because all of these fractions happen to be over 1. However, if any of these fractions had numbers other than 1 in the denominator, you would have to utilize that fraction option in your calculator to input the exact fractions. But your solution looks like this. And your solution gives you, in 1 year, light travels 5.93928. That says e to the 12th. And it says, in other words, that e to the 12th is how the calculator is expressing scientific notation as that number times 10 to the 12th. So this is really that number times 10 to the 12th. So e is a fancy way of the calculator, or just the calculator's way of saying times 10 to the power of whatever comes after e. So it will not always express an answer in scientific notation, unless your calculator, of course, is in scientific notation mode. But we want to know how we could put an answer in scientific notation, and that's what we're going to be doing in the rest of this exercise. The quick way that I like to think of this is that when I see that e to the 12th right there, that's really telling me to take my decimal point and move it 12 times to the right. So I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And now any empty loop I have, I'm going to fill it in with a 0. And this very large number is going to be the number that the calculator is actually representing right now. So we have 5.93928, and then there's 7 zeros after that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is a very large number right there. 5,939,280,000,000 is how many miles light could travel in 1 year. That's a lot of miles. But we want to know how far will a ray of light travel in 1 second now. So we're going to go backwards because we know how many miles per hour. We want to know how many miles in 1 second. So again, let's take that information that we know. We know 6.78 times 10 to the 8th miles in 1 hour. And do we know how many seconds are in an hour? You might, but I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say I know that 1 hour has 60 minutes in it. Because again, I want to get to my answer where it's miles in 1 second. So by multiplying by 1 hour is every 60 minutes and putting the hours in the numerator, I can now cancel out hours with hours. So now my answer, if I were to multiply this straight across, would give me miles per minute. But what I want is miles per second. So I'm going to have to multiply something I know about minutes. Since minutes are in the denominator here, I want to cancel them out by putting minutes in the numerator up here. And I know that 1 minute contains 60 seconds. And now my minutes will cancel out, and my final units would be miles per second, which is exactly what I want here, miles per second. So I'm going to solve this by multiplying straight across 6.78 times 10 to the 8th, as it says in the screenshot of the calculator there. And then we need to use that fraction button because we have numbers in the denominator now other than 1. So now we have times 1 over 60, because here's the 1 over 60 right there, times 1 over 60. There's the 1 over 60 right there. That gives you an answer of 188,333 and a third miles in a second. But using your knowledge of the powers of 10, we're going to place that answer in scientific notation. So how we place a number in scientific notation is we want to take this decimal point and we want to place it somewhere where it becomes a number that's between 1 and 10. So I place that decimal point right there because 1.8 is the only number I could create that's a number between 1 and 10. So I'm going to write 1.883, and then the 3 repeats, so I could do that. 1.883 times 10 is scientific notation. And now the power that goes here is going to be how many times I'm going to have to move that decimal point to get from the new decimal point to the original one. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So that'll be times 10 to the 5th. So here is our amount of miles that the light will travel in 1 second. But again, we want to always read our directions because this says to round the value of a to the nearest hundredth, and I have it rounded, not rounded at all because I have the repeating. So to the nearest hundredth, that would be 1.88 times 10 to the 5th miles in 1 second per second. So this video, we looked at scientific notation and conversions all in one video, one exercise, and we learned a whole great deal, hopefully, about both of these topics. And if this was helpful to you, please give the video a thumbs up, and you're now ready for lesson number 2. Thank you for watching.